Hello boys and girls, today I want to talk about high-gain guitar tones. Interesting and unique high-gain guitar tones, because I know that's what you love. Today I want to show you how the progressive metal band Monuments that we all love dialed in the guitar tone for their latest single. Here we go. These days, it usually works like this. The bands record their DI tracks at home, they send them to the mixing engineer, who will eventually reamp those tracks, if you're lucky through a real rig, sometimes only through plugins. It's kind of boring, right? So Monuments did not do that at all. They decided to dial in the guitar tone during the actual recording session, which I think is very smart. And they really went crazy with this. Not only was this all analog, no plugins, no digital, they actually split the signal into several amps, several cabs, several microphones, a highly complex setup. They kind of got everything in phase and recorded that. So the mix engineer already got like a final tone, but still a bunch of microphones and a bunch of options how to combine them, and yeah, some like different options to choose from. And they had a very different approach from what I do. Don't get me wrong, I love blending different guitar rigs for a larger than live tone, blending amps, blending different cabinets, blending different speakers and microphones. But what I do is I use different tracks, like several performances that I send into different directions, and then I combine them. I even did an entire course about blending guitar tones, including multitracks, showing how you find the right tones that combined, become something bigger. I think it's a $29 course or something. There's a link below. Check it out. What they did was different. They actually used one performance and send it into several amps, which is not easy to do, and that makes it interesting. It was my buddy Adam Steele who recorded the guitars together with Monuments guitarist John Brown, and now I want to pass it over to Adam, who's going to show us the rig and who's going to explain how he did what. So have fun with Adam. Here we go.
Let's talk about, the guitarist. So that's John Brown, and he's an absolute monster of a player, and he was playing his new signature guitar. But that was going, firstly, into a DI box, so we could capture a clean DI. From there, I went into a gate. I went into the dead-wheeled Golem, which is a fantastic gate. And then we split out the signal using a Saturn Works splitter. One of those signals went through a Tube Screamer into this Marshall over here, which is a modified Marshall, with the legendary Tones Hot mod in it, which makes it kind of more Soldano-y. It's a 100-watt vintage Marshall, so it's very angry, very clean, very clear. But that mod just gives it more gain. And the other amp is the Mesa Road King, which you might have seen Kristian Kohle playing with before. I love the Road King. It's very meaty, very chuggy, and that was boosted by the Pepper's Pedals Dirty Tree, which is very similar to a 1433. And so the reason we used two amps at the same time was because of something that George Lever suggested to me, which was that a really good thing to look for in tones is for kind of half the tone to be kind of lower gain, very high transient, very clear, very crisp, and the other half of the signal to be a much more high gain kind of slow response amp, which is where the dual rectifier Road King came in, because then amp 1 has the thing, and amp 2 has the kind of zero definition, angry monster behemoth of a thing, and you combine the two together, and you get a huge sound. Now, both of those amps went with speaker cables under the floor from our control room to the live room. That's something I highly recommend, no matter where you are. If you're working with real amps, try and find somewhere where you can put the guitar cabinet in a separate room. Otherwise, you're going to have no perspective at all on whether the sound is what you're looking for. So the Marshall was going through a traditional 4x12 by Zilla, but very similar to like a traditional Mesa 412, with speakers in that were different, but the one I used was the Marshall G12H30 Anniversary. Very kind of, again, crystal clear, angry, but not as mid-forward as a vintage 30. And the Road King went into a 6x12, an absolute monster of a cabinet, which had the vintage 30 in the top mic'd up. From there, I used an SM57 on both cabinets, But then on the traditional 412, the Marshall side, I used a tip that I've taken from Andy Sneap, which is to use an Austrian Audio OC818, which, as he calls it, the best 414 you're going to get, because it is based on the AKG 414 type design, because it's the same design team that were working on that, but it's much more consistent. And so by combining the 57 and the 818, that gave me a very clean, clear, punchy sound. Now on the 6x12, I used a modded SM57. You don't have to mod yours, but I had that. And the Lewitt 1040, which is complete overkill. It's like a $3,500, $4,000 valve mic. It's my main vocal mic, but I had it in there. I wanted to use it, so why not? For that, I would usually recommend using some sort of condenser that's not quite so expensive, maybe a Roswell K47 or something like that, that's in a much more sane price bracket. But I just happened to have the 1040 on a stand already, so I went, there you go. All four of those mics then came into some nice preamps back here. The Marshall ones went into the Cranbourne Camden preamps, and originally the 6x12 ones went into the Drama 1960 preamps. I then took those out and put them into Audient ASP 880s instead, which are really good preamps again. Ulrich Wild likes them, I like them. They're clean, they're clear, they're full. And then they were all sent, Ulrich Wild style, to this mixer down here, the Behringer mixer. So all four mics went into the Behringer mixer, and I decided for my own sanity with editing that I panned the Marshall ones one side and panned the Mesa ones the other side, so that I could have two separate signals coming out of that mixer to go back to the converters. But before the converters, they went into the Drama 1960 at line level, which is an optical valve compressor. What? Compression? On guitars? Oh yeah. Yeah, that good 3 to 5 dB of compression on heavy rhythm guitars, for me, is a bit of a magic trick. It's a bit of a secret sauce. People say, oh, you shouldn't compress guitars, they're already compressed enough. Okay, I'm getting great results with it. It's something that you should definitely try. If I had Universal Audio's LA3As, I would be using those, because those have the kind of the transformer saturation richness, but I already had the Drama 1960, which I set to a very fast attack and release as far as optical compressors are concerned, and that gave me a big woomph sound. I stereo linked them as well so that the two amps didn't kind of fight with each other in terms of pumping compression. Didn't want that to go weird. And then that went into the converters on a couple of different channels on my Audient rack there, which went into Reaper. What I really want to do to get the phase test is to record them both at the same time and just use specifically some chugs. I've got this big lump, then a bit of a hover, and then down. Now these are not going to be identical in between the two microphones because they are different mics with different tonal profiles, but the large parts of it should be very similar. And you can see these two dips don't line up. The one on top gets into that big dip first, and what that tells me visually, without even having looked at the microphones, which let's look at the microphones, it tells me on screen that the top one is being recorded first. That's because of physics and the speed of sound. When sound comes out of the speaker, it hits what's closest to it, then further away, then further away, then further away. So now, to play the phase game, I'm going to go back in there and move that mic that's too close back a little bit, and probably by, a little bit, and test it again. So, bingo! These big slopes and notches are about as lined up as I'm going to get them, I think. But this is where I've got 5, 6, 7 and 8 on my Audient 880 all running, and if I go... You might remember that when I did that with the Marshall, it sounded a lot more like chick, chick, chick. And now it sounds like an angry dog. Let's try one more time. There, all those little upswings that are on that relatively high frequency all hit at exactly the same time. Yeah, that sounds like it was coming out of one microphone, but thicker and fuller. The thing for me now is with the 2 amp characteristics blended and all the microphones aligned, the only differences now are the amp's response and the micro fluctuations that you get with different weights of capsules and kind of different response patterns, which all combines into something so that when we go back to mixing in the outboard, we get this thing that I call the 3D effect, which is when I record this lot, pan to one side, and then again pan to the other side, it gives a thing where it sounds bigger than it actually is, that is very hard to replicate digitally. So, on we go. 1 and a 2
and a 3.
Yeah, that sounded better. Ooh.
Yeah, I got that riff as well that I wrote at the same time, which is... I need a click to get the thingy right, but I just like that.
Interesting, are you pulling another string to make the flat?
Yeah, I mean...
Make D flat.
Yeah, so you... That's why I've wanted to trem.
Taking advantage of the trem.
That's why I've wanted to trem for ages. I've got a Floyd, but I haven't changed strings ever since I got it, because changing strings on a Floyd Rose is a pain in the ass. Yeah. So I've got this one now, and then I'm like, yeah, I'm going to write all... I'm going to... Anyway.
Well, if you commit and double track it, it must have been on purpose.
Yeah.
Right, other side.
Yeah.
And a 1, and a
2, and a 3, and a 4, and a...
Tight enough for submitting a demo. If not, tight enough for a record. That was pretty good.
Sounds alright to me. And then the other riff.
I hope you enjoyed our little journey into a pretty unique analog guitar recording experience. Was that correct? I don't know. It was fun. If you want to see more, Adam did an entire course about this session, which is, I think, 1.5 hours long, where he goes far more into detail, shows you everything. If you want to see that, check out the link below, which leads you to Modern Metal Guitar Recording with Adam Steele, a course that is a lot of fun. You'll find the course inside my academy, Kohle. Audio Cult. If you don't know what Kohle Audio Cult is, shame on you. No, it's actually the most sexy and most evil recording, mixing and mastering academy for all kinds of heavy music out there. If you want to learn anything about dialing in guitar tones and mixing and mastering and all the other stuff and recording drums and bass and ball, check it out. I think what's very special about this academy is that if you actually subscribe, you will get all our courses from day one. That means you can either just get like Adam's course, or you subscribe and you dive in a whole universe of really cool courses. A lot of courses coming from me, but then other courses from whatever, Ermin Hamidovic or Jens Bogren or Adam Steele, and a lot of other great people. Check out Kohle Audio Cult if you want to learn something, if you want to become better. And yeah, hopefully you will enjoy this entire course. Let Adam entertain you. That's all for today. Don't forget to subscribe to this lovely channel and to ding dong ring the bell if you want to see more content like this. Leave a comment, say hello to your grandma, have a beer, be more metal. I see you in hell, motherfuckers. Bye bye.